Hello folks, and welcome to another Richard Head Longbows video. I'm Philip and that's Richard, whichever side he's on. I hope you like that little intro there of those arrows. We've actually been making quite a lot of arrows at the moment, which is really nice to see, because that means everyone is back out there shooting at last, after the thing that we shouldn't mention that's been keeping people at home. So yeah, that's a real nice relief. And I don't just mean from a business sense, it's just nice to think that people are back out there doing the sport that they love. We've been making quite a few videos of those sets of arrows that we've been making in the workshop. So if you want to see those, they'll be linked in the box below if you want to take a closer look. And that's what these videos are about, catching you up with what we have been up to in our respective workshops, be it bow making or arrow making. So apart from making arrows, the other thing that I will be working on this week, and I've already made a start on, is working on some staves. The staves that I've been working on are partly some for customers and partly some for a course that we've got coming up, one of the teaching courses that we do. Again, if you want to see information about those courses, not that they're open to the public yet, they're private at the moment, but we have videoed some of those courses. Again, they're in the links below if you want to check out those videos. Of course, we've got Richard here, and he must have been doing something instead of just lazing around playing the many guitars that he's got hanging around. So yeah, what have you been up to, Dad?
Well, we had a customer come around the workshop and ask if we could reduce the weight, the draw weight of his longbow. And here it is. Ta-da. We don't usually do that, not because we can't do it or we want to be unhelpful, but very often, if it's a bow made by a bowyer who's still working, still alive, best to go back to him to get the bow either repaired or the weight reduced or whatever. It's the best plan. He knows how he made the bow, and well, he should have the trouble of putting it right or adjusting it
rather than us having to do it.
Oh, we can't be bothered with that. Anyway, so why on earth did I undertake this? The bloke wanted £20 taken off the draw weight. Now it's marked £75 at 28 and £90 at 32. He decided it was too much for him. So we don't normally do it, but he's prepared to pay us handsomely to do it. And there's plenty of wood in the bow, the belly of the bow. There's lots of lemon wood. It's a hickory backing, about a 1/4 inch thick of hickory, so plenty of hickory. A little layer, probably 1/8 of an inch of purple heart, not tapered at all, just goes straight to the end. And then loads of lemon wood. So he wanted it reduced by approximately £20. Very often, if we're asked to do this, bows go out of tiller. We end up basically making a new bow, making a silk purse out of a sow's ear, which is why we tend not to do it. In the past, it wasn't unusual for the bowyer to have the bow back to adjust it and make it work properly. And in fact, Roger Ascombe in Toxophilus, there's a copy, and I'll read out what he says. And this is going back to the 1500s, when the longbow was still very a well-known weapon and still used for recreation and warfare. He says, after getting a new bow, you take your bow into the field, shoot in him, sink him with dead heavy shafts, look where he cometh most, provide for that place betimes, lest it pinch. And that's very often we say people have got this tiny little mark on the belly of the bow, looks like a little crease. That's what he's calling a pinch. And so fret. And if you leave it, that will go right around, like the fret on a guitar, which there's one hanging on the wall. So that goes right the way around. If it's a little pinch, you can cut that out, you can put a bloom in and repair it. If it goes into a fret, which goes right the way round, there's very little you can do about that. When you have thus shot in him and perceived good shooting wood in him, you must have him again to a good cunning and trusty workman, which will cut him shorter and pike him, and dress him fitter, make him come round compass everywhere, and whipping at the ends, but with discretion, lest he whip in sunder, or else fret sooner than he is ware of. He must also lay him straight if he be cast, or otherwise need require. And if he be flat made, gather him round, and so shall he both shoot the faster for far shooting, and also the surer for near pricking. So it wasn't unusual in those days to take a bow back, and we found with you, and that's probably talking about self-yew bows, that they do alter after you've been shooting them a while, and they can cast to one side. They can alter. This particular bow, not made of yew, but it was out of tiller. The top limb was a bit stiffer than it should have been, and that could have happened after the bow was made. Quite possible. So that was that. So what did we do? We decided to put it on the tiller to start with, and I think there's should be a video of it on the tiller. And we drew it up and checked the draw weight, and the draw weight was not as it was marked. In fact, it was 68 pounds at 28, not 75. So it had lost some weight. And on the tiller, it looked as if the ends were too stiff. And as you got near full draw, it started to stack. It really felt a lot heavier in those last few inches of draw. And that's because the whole of the bow wasn't working. The ends were far too stiff. So I thought, right, okay, check the draw weight. It wasn't what's marked, so we knew what we had to take off. First thing to do was to start removing some wood. So I thought, right, okay, best thing to do is to get the spoke shave on it. So we did that. I sharpened the blade, just need touching up a little bit to start with, and then used the spoke shave to start removing some wood. If we were only removing a pound or two, I'd have just used a scraper and a rasp. But because we needed to take off nearly 20 pounds, that's a lot of wood. I used the spoke shave to start with. I also physically weighed the bow to see how much it weighed before we started, to see how much wood I eventually took off. The weight originally was 1,062 grams. And in fact, when I'd finished, it was 949 grams. So I'd taken 113 grams of wood off this particular bow. Wow. Anyway, I used the spoke shave, start taking quite a bit of wood off, and then the rasp and the scraper to get the bow down, but also to make the ends of the bow flex a little more than they were originally. So I then put it onto the tiller again after we'd removed about 10 pounds of weight to see what it was looking like. And it started to look pretty good, actually, a lot better than it was to start with. Then took it back in, I thought probably spoke shaving wouldn't take any more off with the spoke shave, but just did a bit more rasping, and eventually got it down to what we show in the final tiller, which reduced it by 18 pounds, actually, which was close enough to the 20 pounds. It weighed 50 pounds at 28 and just over 60 at 32. And the guy said, well, can you take it down to about 60 pound at 32? He only drew a 29-inch arrow anyway, so he's never going to draw it to 32 inches. So that was about it. So we got it down. I think the bow looks a lot better. I'm sure it will shoot much better. He apparently couldn't get the clout with it. Clout distance 180 yards with a bow, 70 pounds plus, which just showed it was just a great big lump of wood. So hopefully it's going to be a better bow than it was to start with. Just got to sand it down now, put some varnish on it, and get it back to the customer. So that's about it for that. So it's worked fairly well. There's always a risk in working with bows, but hickory looked pretty good, didn't seem to be any problems with it, and it was unlikely to break while I was working on it. But I always tell customers, if we are doing a repair, it is at their risk. It can break while you're doing it, and you never know. So yeah, that's kept me busy for a day or so.
What else have you been doing all this time?
Well,
since we've done one of these videos.
Practicing the guitar.
Yeah, I think you've got a gig. Have you come at the first gig since
tomorrow? Yeah, outside in the fresh air.
Right.
We've all got to take a blooming COVID test before we allowed in.
Really?
And I took 2 last week, and the official one that got sent away to the testing laboratories, but that was negative. So yeah, a bit of a nuisance.
There's all those groupies rushing the stage, trying to get it.
Though you've got to be careful with those.
You've got to protect these 18-year-old girls rushing at you. Throwing their pants.
You get locked up for that. That's the trouble. You've got to be so careful. No, they've got to be over 50. I'm afraid.
Oh, that's a different test altogether.
Anyway.
I'd like to reiterate, please don't start bringing your bows to us.
No, you don't want them unless you've got plenty of money and don't mind. But I mean, the trouble is the number of hours you spend doing it, you might as well make a new bow. I mean, that's why it can be so expensive. You say, well, I'm sorry, this is going to cost you, £200+ to do. You might as well put that towards a new bow.
Yeah.
But, there we are.
Yeah. Yes, it's a difficult one with equipment, already existing equipment that you perhaps can't use anymore or have grown out of, or it probably is best to pass it on rather than trying to adjust it.
Because reducing the weight is not just scraping a bit off the belly.
No.
9 times out of 10, the bow is all out of tiller. And you end up making a new bow out of what you've been given. If it was just a half an hour scraping a bit of wood off the belly, fine, no problem. But it's rarely like that.
No, exactly. Yeah, we used to do more of it in the past, but as Richard said, it's not something we really want to be troubled with anymore.
No, I mean, if it's a bowyer that's living, as I said earlier, then send it back to them. They're the best people to do it.
Yeah.
If it's an older bow and the bowyer is no longer with us, then we don't mind having a look at it. But as I say, it can be too expensive, to uneconomic to bother with.
Yeah.
And even older bows, I know there's people now playing around with old Victorian bows. Leave them alone. They're just to be hung on the wall.
Yeah, I think to make the point, there is a huge difference between the dimensions that Richard was showing you there of that particular bow compared to a lot of other bows that had a lot of meat in the belly section for Richard to be able to remove wood. If you're trying to say get down the weight of, on the other end of the scale, say a lady's bow, which might be very small in dimensions, may not have very thick belly, there might be a thicker center laminate, so you might find yourself danger of going through the laminations of that particular bow if it's a laminated bow. There just isn't the room to actually physically change the bow. So if you are thinking of doing it, it's really going to depend very much on the construction of the bow and the varying dimensions of the laminations. And then, as Richard said at the beginning, then there's U bows, self bows is another story again. So just because it's something that can be done with this particular bow doesn't mean it can be done with every bow. And as Richard said, may not be worth the hassle anyway. So yeah, so there we are. So that's what we've been up to. What have you been up to? Are you a bowyer yourself? Are you an amateur bowyer? What have you been up to in your workshop? We'd like to know, and it's always interesting to see what everyone is getting up to. If you want to learn more about making bows and arrows, we've obviously got a website specifically designed for that, which will be, I'll put the thing here somewhere and the link below. It's howtomakealongbow.co.uk, where we have tried to collate all the information that we've put together here on this YouTube channel in some sort of order so that you can follow it from start to finish. There are obviously bits and pieces missing within the bow making structure. We'll hopefully try and fill in the blanks with those videos over the coming months if we can, but therein lies the nub with producing these videos and hosting obviously a website, or paying someone to host a website. It obviously costs us a lot of money, and it's time out of the workshop where we really should be making your arrows and your bows instead of having polite conversations like this. So if you'd like for these videos to continue, if you'd like for the bow making website to carry on, then think about using the donate button, which I shall link to below and is also on the banner at the top of our web page, our YouTube channel page, I should say. If you'd like to, great. We will continue making these videos and making the channel and preserving all this information. And I should like to point out, it is information that I only realised this year. I have been working with Richard full-time for 25 years. It only occurred to me last week. So yay, I'd pull a party popper if I had one. So yes, officially 25 years of working full-time with Richard. So there's a lot of information that I've gleaned obviously over the years, and there's a reason why I say full-time, because it being a family business, I've been in and around it all for a lot longer than 25 years, doing various things, helping even when I was a kid, spining arrow shafts, pocket money, and things like that. Which we
Splitting logs.
Splitting logs I did as a kid, yeah. From about the age of 10, I was splitting new logs, and yeah, so I've been involved a long time. But yeah, I only just realised last week it's actually 25 years that I've been full-time doing this, which makes me sound terribly old, which is probably why I've lost my hair. And I'm shorter, and I've lost my hair. I generally I will look like him eventually. Slowly going grey, the stress of being a bowyer. So there we are. So yes, if you'd like us to continue with this, then consider donating. If you don't, then we will just stop doing it, and yeah, we'll get on with our lives instead of doing this. So yeah, let us know what you've been up to. We'd like to know. I hope you're all having a good time. And as I say, we are making lots of arrows, so no doubt you are out there shooting. So let us know what competitions, what shoots you've been doing in and around the world. It's not obviously just here in the UK. We get a lot of viewers from abroad. Be nice to hear what you're up to as well. And I don't know whether any of you watch British comedy, but it's just occurred to me I look like Holly from Red Dwarf with this black background. Although he'd be covered up completely, wouldn't he? Just be as doesn't work quite. Anyway, that's our cue to leave, I think. So luckily I've got a Holly hot drive. So I shall press the start button, and we'll see what happens. Bye everybody. Did anything happen? Yeah.